Hi, Arcfield meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Thursday morning, November the 6th. We have an Arctic blast that is coming into the eastern states for the early part of next week. Strong cold frontal passage will take place late in the day on Sunday or Sunday evening across the eastern part of the U.S. and that will usher in the coldest air mass of the season so far that had its origins right near the North Pole. We traced that on a video discussion earlier in the week where this particular air mass originated right near the North Pole, will dive due south right through Canada into the central U.S. and spread out into the eastern states for Monday and Tuesday. This Arctic invasion will have an impact all the way down to southern Florida. I expect Tuesday morning low temperatures in the 40s in places like Miami and probably the 30s in the middle part of Florida. That is very cold indeed for this early in the season. Now, there's also a vigorous upper level low that will be associated with this Arctic blast, and models have been handling this particular system quite differently, especially between, for example, the Euro and the GFS. GFS is kind of coming around to the European solution, which pushes that upper level low a little farther to the south and east, and it's also stronger with that upper level system. That has a lot of impact. That will have a lot of impact on the possibility of some snow in places like West Virginia, the higher elevations of Kentucky and eastern Tennessee, and even into the I-95 corridor region. I think there can be some snow shower activity later Monday into Monday night. And we'll kind of focus in on this Arctic blast over the next few minutes here. First of all, let's start off with last night's run of the GFS, and this is for Monday evening. We're looking all the way out to Monday evening, and here is its positioning of that upper level low. Now, let's compare it to last night's run of the Euro, and here we go, the Euro again, farther to the south and east and stronger with that upper level low. And go back and forth here. Again, this is the difference here between the GFS and the European model. The GFS usually is a little bit too progressive, a little bit too much of a quick movement of an upper level system in this kind of a pattern. So I tend to favor the European solution here. And again, that brings about an increased chance of some accumulating snow in places like West Virginia, down across western part of, the eastern part of Kentucky and Tennessee in the Appalachian Mountains. And this kind of an upper level pattern will produce instability, high levels of instability over a large area of the eastern U.S., right in the midst of this Arctic outbreak. So I do believe there's a snow shower possibility later Monday night, places like D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City. That all remains to be seen. But again, still a difference. The GFS is coming around a little bit closer to the European model, but this is very impressive indeed. Now let's backtrack a little bit here and kind of walk through from the beginning here of the European model. And I just want to start off showing those differences between the GFS and the Euro here. Now let's start off here. Let's start off at the beginning of the weekend. Here we go on Saturday morning here. You have a lot of blues showing up here, upper level trough centered over Canada, but also kind of different short waves here riding through the large scale upper level trough. And here we go into the late day Saturday and finally into the day on Sunday. There'll be a strong cold front here. We'll see that on the surface maps in a moment. Rain is likely to break out in the I-95 corridor region during the day on Sunday. A mild weekend coming for the Mid-Atlantic region ahead of this Arctic blast. Probably temperatures Saturday afternoon could approach a 70-degree mark in some parts of that I-95 corridor region. Then by late in the day on Sunday, into Sunday night, and into Monday morning, a very vigorous upper level feature here. In the midst of this Arctic outbreak, by this time that Arctic air has pushed into much of the eastern U.S. on its way south and east to southern Florida at this particular time. And here we go. It intensifies, it dives to the south and east, a highly unstable atmosphere setting up here for late Monday night throughout much of the eastern U.S., and cold enough for snow shower activity in many places and accumulating snow in those higher elevations. Again, West Virginia, northward into western Pennsylvania, western New York, there will be a Great Lakes snow event as well. All those areas, those favored areas just downstream of the Great Lakes in western PA, western New York, for example, will get in on some accumulating snow. This is a highly unstable look to it, especially for the higher elevations of the Appalachians and to those areas just downstream of the Great Lakes. It slowly moves to the north and east here, but by the time we get into midday on Tuesday, and by this time that Arctic air has penetrated all the way down into southern Florida. Now, it pushes on by midweek, but then there's kind of reinforcing shots. Anyone expecting a big-time warm-up, a sustained warm-up after this Arctic invasion in the northeastern part of the country, I think are kind of missing the boat here. I think there's a couple of reinforcing shots of cold air coming in later next week, and then during the following weekend or the early part of the following week, another shot of cold air coming into the northeastern part of the nation. You can see here, going all the way into the end of next week, we still have this deep upper level trough that's kind of been reinforced by another short wave wrapping around that long, large scale upper level trough. And here we go all the way into the weekend here, and right on its heels, you go a little farther in time, you see yet another short wave cold air mass relative to normal diving to the south and east by a week from this coming Sunday. This is Sunday the 16th, so it certainly does not look to me like Monday and Tuesday's Arctic invasion will be followed by a sustained period of warm weather in the northeastern part of the nation. Indeed, it looks like there will be follow-up colder than normal air masses. Well, let's in fact take a look at the 850 millibar temperature anomalies. Again, this is using the European model run from last night. I think it has a pretty good handle on the overall situation. Colder than normal today across much of the Great Lakes, northeastern part of the country. A lot of warmer than normal conditions out across the Rocky Mountain states. Denver, for example, quite warm and very dry. This has been a dry pattern out there. They haven't had significant precipitation, for example, in Denver for the last several days, and will not for the next several days. A warm, dry pattern out there. Now, let's move forward here to the end of the work week. This is on Friday morning, and then we go into the upcoming weekend. By Saturday morning, you have this strong cold front starting to show up here with this widespread colder than normal air mass. Again, this particular air mass had its origins right near the North Pole, and it is certainly going to be a noteworthy event in the eastern U.S. Here we go into the midday on Sunday. A mild weekend ahead of it in the mid-Atlantic. Again, you could reach 70 degrees in D.C., for example, on a Saturday afternoon, and up in the 60s on Sunday with some rain developing out ahead of that Arctic front here. By the time we get to late Sunday night, that front should clear the east coast here, and here we go with this invasion of Arctic air. And look at these differences with normal. This is way down here in the 20 degrees below normal range here by early Monday morning. Now, the Arctic air really floods into Florida during the day on Monday, and the real impact will be felt Monday night and Tuesday morning. Again, expect lows in the 30s and 40s across the Florida Peninsula by Tuesday morning. Here we go into Monday, and then into Tuesday, right here Tuesday morning. Again, the cold air has penetrated all the way down through the Gulf and into the southern part of Florida. A very cold morning for much of the eastern U.S. Monday morning as well as Tuesday morning. And in many areas, for example, in the Mid-Atlantic region, this will be the first hard freeze of the season, with overnight lows dropping into the 20s in many of those areas. For example, certainly in the suburbs of the big cities, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, New York City, this Monday night coming up will probably be that first hard freeze in many areas, and if not Monday night, Tuesday night in much of that part of the nation. Then we go through into the middle of the week, colder than normal air, kind of hanging on along the eastern seaboard. And as I mentioned, there'll be kind of reinforcing shots. Here's another one coming across the Great Lakes later next week. We're now out a week from today to next Thursday, the 13th. And even beyond that, that turns out to be kind of impressively colder than normal by the end of next week. All the warm air is confined to the western half of the nation, where it will be significantly above normal. But beyond that, we may get a little bit warmer for a couple of days, but even another colder than normal air mass pushes into the mid-Atlantic region, northeast U.S. by the time we get out to Monday, the 17th of November. Still very warm conditions relative to normal up across the heartland, the middle of the U.S. Well, let's wrap up with the surface forecast maps from last night's 0Z run of the GFS. Still a tight pressure gradient this morning. The difference between the departing strong low, difference in pressure between this departing low and an incoming high, quite high. So the pressure gradient is quite strong here. In other words, expect strong winds for the next several hours up across New England and into especially the northern half of the Mid-Atlantic region with gusts of 30 or 40 miles per hour or so. That will tend to relax as the day progresses, as this high edges in, that loosens up that pressure gradient over the northeastern states here by later today. And that high sits on top of the Carolinas overnight tonight. This will lead to some late night lows way down in the 30s, even in the big cities of the I-95 corridor region, especially the suburban areas just to the north and west. There can be some patchy frost late tonight. Low temperatures not too far from freezing, let's say, for example, just north and west of Philly by tomorrow morning. Again, watch out for some patchy frost in those suburban locations. Then we get the next cold frontal system, and it's kind of a misnomer. It is going to be labeled as a cold front, but the air behind it actually becomes a little bit warmer in the Mid-Atlantic region for the upcoming weekend. This cold front can cause some showers later tomorrow night into early Saturday. And again, no difference in temperatures behind it. In fact, temperatures will tick up a bit on Saturday. They could approach 70 degrees in D.C. and certainly the 60s in Philly and New York City. And then we start getting into the real interesting time period here. On Sunday, you'll start to get a breakout of rain out ahead of that strong Arctic front, and you'll get low pressure over the eastern part of the Great Lakes. And with that upper level low diving to the south and east, don't be surprised if there's low pressure starting to form at the surface east of the Appalachians here, again with that position of the upper level low in the European model. I do favor that European model solution here. So here we go into the evening hours on Sunday, early Sunday, and that cold front, which is located right in this area right here, by Sunday evening, will just about clear the coast here. Let's draw this right here, that cold front right this time, right in this area, diving to the south and east, and this is a very chilly air mass. This high originated way up over northern Canada. So this is Sunday evening. Then we get into the overnight hours here on Monday, and by this time that cold air is diving all the way to the south and east, headed for Georgia and headed to Florida as well. And you see a breakout of some snow here on this particular model run here, all showing up in blue. This is associated, this is right underneath that deepening upper level low. That's why that's an important player here. It will produce some very unstable conditions and snow places like West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, the western part of the Carolinas, western Maryland as well should get in on some of the action here. And again, with that upper level low diving to the south and east, don't be surprised if there's some snow shower activity that makes its way all the way into the immediate I-95 corridor region, let's say later Monday into Monday night. This is the forecast map for late Monday. It's not showing snow up here, but there certainly can be some snow shower activity in that part of the nation. Expect accumulating snow just downstream of the Great Lakes, western New York, western Pennsylvania, and I also believe accumulating snow in those higher elevations of West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, the western Carolinas, western Maryland. You can see some streamers here setting up here by Monday night. Great Lakes snow event is in the offing here. And remember, this time of the year, the water temperatures of the Great Lakes still relatively warm, certainly much warmer than they'll be in a month or two. When you have relatively warm lake water at this time of the year and Arctic air moving over, flowing over, that really caused the destabilization of the lower part of the atmosphere, which in turn leads to these snow bands here coming just downstream of the Great Lakes. Look at this. This is an impressive Great Lakes snow event here showing up on the models here for Monday night. Totally believable as well here. When we go into the day on Tuesday, again, watch out just downstream of Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. Again, a perfect setup here. You notice tight pressure grading here. We've talked about this tight pressure grading. This will be a strong northwest flow here, enhancing the feel of winter in the eastern part of the nation later Monday night time frame. Quite an unstable atmosphere as well. Then we get into the day on Tuesday. And by the way, Tuesday morning, again, watch temperatures could be way down in the 30s and 40s across the Florida Peninsula. And things tend to relax by the time we get to the middle of the week here in terms of temperature. But there's kind of a reinforcing shot of colder than normal air moves its way across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast by the end of next week. This is the forecast map for next Friday. And look at the snow shower activity. And again, a reinforcing shot of cold air. Do not expect a sustained warm-up behind this Arctic invasion on Monday and Tuesday if you are in the Great Lakes or the Middle Atlantic or the Northeast U.S. There will be multiple cold shots to follow over the next couple of weeks. So that's it for now. Very interesting weather pattern and an Arctic invasion into the eastern U.S. for the early part of next week. That's it for now. For ArcfieldWeather.com, this has been meteorologist Dorian.